kids. Yes, turns out that our guest for today, Gary Bagley, had an unexpected and urgent meeting come up, and so he will join us again. He's one of the nicest people in the world. If anybody has ever said something came up, he did it with such graciousness. It was so I want to be him. You'll see what I mean when we have Gary Bagley on. We've rescheduled him. I think he's going to be in June. So he's in charge of New York Cares, and we're going to talk a lot about how they responded in the very point of the spear on the COVID-19 crisis. He's included in my new book, Stronger Through Adversity. And so we're going to get some insights, particularly from leading a nonprofit. How do you get people activated and motivated, and particularly when a lot of the people who had to reach out and be of service had to overcome their own sense of fear and focus more on others than on themselves. It's a fascinating conversation. I'm excited to have that with him, but we will do that in June. For now, we will talk about what I suggested we would talk about. It's based on lots of feedback that I've gotten. People write me all the time or call me or contact me or whatever. Or today, for example, I was doing a meeting in Reykjavik, Iceland. No, I didn't fly to Iceland. I used the power of virtual technology and had a great event for a group called Nova and Academias. The combination of those two groups encouraged people who were in business in Iceland to talk about customer experience. And so in the context of that meeting today, they asked me a question that at the Q&A section, which I'll ask you. What are the great customer experience brands? What brands have rocked your world? You say, really, if I want to have a great experience with a brand, I'm going to deal with X, Y, or Z. Who comes to mind? So just type it in the comment section, whether you're watching us on LinkedIn Live or you're on Facebook Live or you're over on YouTube checking in with us today. Whatever brand jumps out at you and says, if I want to reliably expect a great customer experience, it's going to be with brand whatever. So then once you've done that, I'll tell you my answer to the question, because I think, I don't know, it's a hard question. And particularly when you're talking to people in Reykjavik, Iceland, like what exactly are the brands that they're going to resonate with that they think of as extraordinary, right? So I might have a very US centric view, customer centricity, but what's the view from Reykjavik, Iceland? All right, enough of that. Let me get to the topic today. I'm talking about customer service versus customer experience. And this is a question I get asked a lot. Like, do we need customer service training or do we need customer experience consultative design work, right? Well, this is a fascinating conversation to me because I started in this business. Oh, I'm going to date myself here. This is pretty terrible, but we didn't use the word customer experience. It wasn't in the vocabulary in my origin days. In fact, I was working for a healthcare system and we were looking at patient service and we were looking at standardizing patient service and we were talking about developing scripts. What should you say when you answer the phone? What should you say when you walk into a patient room? As an outpatient versus an inpatient, what should you say before you leave? And really, truly try to get people to memorize these scripts, because in the world of customer service, consistency was king. We might as well build it once and then everybody just say it that same way. Thus, we would have consistency of the service and we would have an elevated service level. And I can share this with you, kind of going back to the days of the Ritz-Carlton. They had service behaviors once upon a time, and those service behaviors said no okie dokie at the Ritz-Carlton, meaning you should never say the words okie dokie. It is not a refined form of service. It is not in keeping with the way the brand presents itself in the market. So from a service language perspective, don't say okie dokie. And they gave suggestions of how you might greet a guest, and they gave suggestions. They didn't mean it to be a script, kind of like what I was trying to do in healthcare, but they would give service suggestions, and you would say my pleasure as an alternative to say you're welcome. So these were kind of the ways it used to be. And then they found at the Ritz-Carlton, just like we did in healthcare, that if you script or provide too many guardrails that people are supposed to grab onto to deliver a consistent verbiage, People over grab onto them. They use them as shortcuts. They don't actually create a sense of it's my pleasure to help you. It's more like I just know I'm supposed to say those words, and reflexively I replace you're welcome with my pleasure, and the guest gets my pleasure to death on any short or long stay at Ritz-Carlton. So this is kind of the evolution, if you will, of mindset on service versus experience. So service is, in my humble opinion, the predictable and consistent delivery of products. Now, this is a little tricky because some people's product is a professional service like legal advice. So the advice is the product, but the delivery of that advice is consistent and predictable and reliable in a service model. I will give you it right. I will hand you the product correctly every single time. If for some reason something goes wrong with the product, the service will make it right. So get it right, make it right is my world of service. And that's different than experience. So first off, when should you get customer service training? Well, I think anybody who's in a customer facing role benefits from training. Some of it's on the job. Some people have a natural talent to listen and engage and care about the situation of another. But I think all of us benefit from training. I've done blogs over the course of my career where I've got the 5 things you should never say as a customer service professional, right? 5 things you should always say as a customer service professional. And I think those kind of training tools are very valuable organizationally. You know, it's kind of like sales. Not everybody who sells things has any training in sales. Some people are just natural born salespeople. But when you do develop something, you understand how to overcome objections, and you understand how to help someone see the benefits and attributes of your product and the unique value proposition of your product. You're a far more successful salesperson. And the same is true, I think, in a customer service arena when you're helping people get things consistently or make things right. All right, enough of that. Now, what is customer experience? Well, the short answer is it's everything, which makes the other short answer, it becomes nothing if it's everything, right? If a word is everything, then there is no situation where the word doesn't apply, then the word has no meaning. So from my perspective, customer experience needs to be defined. And to me, it is the way we envelop, it's the total of the touch points, the sum total perception of individuals based on their touch points across a brand. So the customer experience is determined by the customer. It's not determined by the brand. We want to elevate the customer experience. Well, how do we know if we did it and what experience do we want to deliver? That has to be defined in the marketplace. So what do we want to deliver is the brand's decision to make. Leaders at a brand say, we want to deliver an experience that's nurturing vis-a-vis the Ritz-Carlton, right? We want to develop an experience that's affordable luxury in the living room of the community. That's a Starbucksy kind of experience we want to deliver. Now what we do is we go to the market and say, is that relevant to anybody? Does anybody want those experiences? Because if so, we need to send our message out to people who do. People who want a budget stay at the cheapest room possible are not going to be interested in a nurturing stay, a refined sensory experience that nurtures you in a hotel. You're not going to go, you're definitely 2 different audiences, right? So if I'm the budget buyer, I probably am not a Ritz-Carlton buyer. Now, there are certain need states where even though 90% of the time I'm a budget buyer, special occasion, I might want to go and have that nurturing experience where my senses are elevated. Maybe not every single day, every single time. That's not my basic proclivity, but certain use cases I do. Sometimes the segmentation of my customer base is going to be made based on a predominant need case. So let's say I'm a business traveler. That's a very different kind of need state than a leisure traveler. I might be nurturant oriented in both settings, but my target for going into a space is different. And maybe some of the specific needs I have during a stay are different if I'm traveling with my family versus traveling for business. Right now, I'm talking like this, like I've been traveling lately. I don't remember what traveling is like. Anybody remember that? I think they had these tubular things. They had like wings on them, and then you stood in line to get screened. Yeah, those days. I think they're coming back pretty soon. But not to digress too much. The point here is that customer experience is knowing what experience you want to define and knowing the markets that are interested in that experience. Then it's understanding whether or not you're delivering that for the people that you are targeting. Well, kind of smart if before you even go and ask them how you're doing on it, you ask them, how should I be doing it for you? So a lot of customer experience work is going to that group of folks for whom you were a certain kind of experience, checking in with them to make sure A, is this experience relevant? And B, how do I make it happen so it's salient to you? So you see it, feel it, hear it, taste it, smell it in the environment. How do I smell luxury and Century at Ritz-Carlton? I have the flowers in the foyer, and the arrival experience is such a memorable, salient time that the olfactory scent of the flowers will do it. Or Ritz-Carltons have their own scent, right? And it's manufactured and it's piped into the environment. I work for a barbecue restaurant. We make sure that the scent from the smoker is hitting people on arrival. Pipe it into the drive-through lane so that you can smell that smoke from the smoker as you roll down your windows to come into the drive-through. Those are elements of an experience and don't have a lot to do with service. You can get the barbecue right, you can get the hotel bed right, but you haven't done anything to, as my buddy Joe Pine says, stage it in an experience. Had some great interactions with Joe Pine. Joe Pine and his partner Gilmore just wrote the book. They wrote the book on the experience economy. So they're the ones who first start talking about once upon a time, right? Once upon a time in a land far, far away, the economy of things was the ability to extract value from the earth, like ore and gold and these kinds of things were where economic value came from, was the ability to extract it from the earth. And then value came, once it was extracted, in being able to make something from the thing you extracted. So we'll stay with coffee because it's something I know. And so the extraction from the earth is the ability to take the coffee beans, which are really cherries on the coffee plant, to take those coffee beans and then make something from it, to dry them, to be able to roast them, to brew them, and then bam, put it in with hot water and you've made coffee. So the next level in the economic chain, according to Gilmore and Pine, is to take what you made and to serve it for somebody. So instead of you having to take the beans, grind them up, and put them in hot water, what an arduous job that is. If somebody did that all for you, if they took the beans and ground it up and put it in the hot water and had it available, ready to use, then they are serving you coffee. And service can be self-serve, right? Like in a convenience store where you go in and they've got the giant canisters of coffee in there. And you just simply have to get your cup to take the made coffee home with you. Or it could be someone serving it to you in a truck stop, or someone serving it to you in an affordable luxury setting. Now, the serving it to you in the affordable luxury setting is creating an experience around the cup of coffee, so that when you come in, you're not only coming in for the coffee at the lowest possible price, but you're coming in for the Wi-Fi. You're coming in for hopefully a friendly barista. If you come in regularly, a friendly barista who knows your name, where you feel like you belong and you're welcomed. And you're coming in to be able to sit down in a comfortable chair. So I'm serving you a cup of coffee in the living room of the community. And that then is a whole new level of economic value. And Gilmore and Pine would say that that last level, experiences are staged. Now, I use the word designed, but take your pick, right? I mean, staged is a very wonderful theatrical concept. There's staging. We have to get the lights right. We have to make sure that the scenery is all taken care of. People know when to come in and when to go out in order to produce this. I've always struggled with staged a bit because I think in some way I think of something that is staged for me is not as authentic as something that is built for me. And I know that may seem really subtle of a distinction, but in my head, whenever I think of something being staged, I think of a production. And I think it sometimes can be off-putting, it can be disingenuine. So I use the word designed because I can design something for you. And I think it carries that sort of handcrafted concept. So forget the words so much, but realize customer experience is a created phenomena with an intention of delivering an output that includes an emotional experience, an emotional perception, and it's designed across the journey of the customer with you. So I could orchestrate a wonderful service transaction, meaning one moment in time, I hand you the cup of coffee and you hand me the money. That one moment is everything. That's a great service transaction. I get it right every single time. You know, I made it as easy as possible for you to pay me. It's a great service transaction. But if the next thing that happens doesn't fit with whatever just happened right then, I have a great great service transaction, and then I have a disjointed experience, an experience that is all over the map. One moment you got it down, really efficient. The next moment it's super luxury. What am I getting here? I'll give you an example. If you, for those of you who've used Costco, for example, Costco is a beloved brand. People who shop Costco, they are like loyal to Costco. But there isn't much fancy in the experience, right? There isn't a elevated experience. Very efficient. They do great buying. They pay their people well. Their people are pretty engaged in terms of serving you when you're in the warehouse environment. But it's a warehouse, for goodness sakes. Now, the moment that they would, and their experience is about opulent product access and large quantities and discount buying, being a member of a club that gets all of these benefits and perks and quality, you know, designer labels for them that you get as a member of the club. It's kind of this inclusivity, cost containment, and just opportunity of exploration. So if they were to go to a concierge at the front desk who, upon arrival, just welcome to Costco, I am here to make your experience extraordinary. If they had a person staged there, to use Joe Pine's word, it would be awful, right? I mean, it would be such a disconnect from the rest of the experience. The experience is designed to create something other than this arrival moment where you feel like you've just walked into the Taj Mahal, right? So my point I'm trying to get at here is we need to start by, above all else, in an experience to know what we want people to feel. We want to know how we want our experience to be created. And we need to know, to whom will that appeal? You know, in the new book, Stronger Through Adversity, I talk about business as being fairly simple. I blogged about this recently, that really it's just a matter of, you know, kind of considering what is valuable to consumers. What would they value in an experience? What would they value in a product? What would they value in a service offering? And once we figure that out, then who is it exactly that does value that? And there's a market for it. There's a finite market. Not everybody is really going to be into everything. So any brand that doesn't understand they have to narrow their market to their audience is probably not going to serve anybody. It's impossible to create a brand that serves everything to everybody. Amazon may be as close as you get, but they're really not creating the product, right? They're using their AI to see what people are buying, and they're pulling in product. They have their own designer products, but they're pulling in products from all kinds of other consumers, other vendors. So it's not as though they're that so much. They're more of the ubiquitous delivery method. But for all practical intents and purposes, you can't be everything to everybody. And so what value do you want to bring to the market? To whom is that value relevant? So this value creation and marketing value, and knowing your market and understanding the ironclad laws of the market. Your markets are of a certain size. Sell you can't sell to a market bigger. You can't think you're going to do better than the size of the market. So that said, then once we have the market, then how do we market to them? How do we let them know, hey, I've got this incredible experience. It's amazing. It's tremendous. It's perfect for someone like you. And then once we do, how do we make sure that when they come in the door, because they're interested, we got their interest, we've marketed to them, and they come into our sales cycle, how do we help them connect that this is perfect for someone like us? How do we use that sales process to demonstrate the value that we have that resonates with what they want? And then once we've done that, how do we move into this next phase, which is, okay, you see the value in it, you bought it. How do I make sure I deliver the value that I promised? And that's what customer experience is all about. And that value is practical, promised to you in terms of the benefits and attributes of the thing, and emotional. Because when I told you how amazing this product was, I told you how it was going to make you feel. It was going to make you feel successful, going to make you feel smart, going to make you feel like you got status, whatever it's going to be. Did I deliver that in the product itself and the way I delivered the product to you? So if you go to a Ritz-Carlton, you're going to want to feel special. You're going to want to feel nurtured. That's part of the value proposition. The brand itself carries a certain nurturing specialness to it. And so if I'm going to be able to go and have a stay there, I want my aspiration to be met with fulfillment of the aspiration in terms of the thread count of the sheets, as well as the degree to which the lady or gentleman serving me took an authentic interest in me and treated me like a lady or gentleman as well. So hopefully this is getting at this all the time. Like, should we get customer service training, Joseph? I mean, I think don't like people to training, or do I need customer experience design work? And the answer is yes, probably both, right? I want you got to make sure your people understand how to serve your customers. They also probably need to understand how to serve one another, which is why I tend not to use the word customer experience and instead prefer the word human experience. Now, I'm okay to use customer experience, but I almost always have to qualify it. I must always have to say, but by customer, I mean your external customer and internal customer, your team members. And internal customer is kind of a weird phrase. And then it gets really weird because I have brands that I work with who say, okay, I get it. I get that I have an internal customer and an external customer. And I'll say, do you think your vendors are your customers? And some brands I work with 100% say, no, they are not my customer. Like, powerfully say that. And others say, well, now that you mention it, I mean, they're kind of not, because they help me deliver my services to my customer. But in a way, they kind of are, because the way I treat them probably affects the way they treat my team or my customers. And so there's a whole bunch of like dancing around our vendors' customers, our stockholders' customers. What if you're in a B2B2C brand? Who's your customer? Meaning that if you sell something to a distributor who sells something to the end user, is the end user your customer, or is it the distributor you sell to? These distinctions, I mean, take a lot of energy to try to explain, explore, and discuss. So I tend to use the word human centricity. And what I get by that is that every person you serve, and I think vendors you serve, you serve them to the degree that they can serve you back effectively. And I have clients who are much better at serving me as a vendor partner than some other clients who struggle to help me help them. And they need to work on their vendor experience, if you will. Anyway, back to my point, which is I don't like to use the word customer because I think it just gets parsed out. Plus, we're all just people, whether you call me a customer. I got into this in the Airbnb book a bit, where on a given day, I could be an employee of Airbnb. Let's pretend I worked at Airbnb in San Francisco. And then that night, somebody rented out a room in my home in San Francisco. So now I am a employee, and I'm also a B2B2C customer, meaning I'm the distributor of the product of Airbnb. I'm the middle B in there. Airbnb is the B that the end user contacts to get their room, and they've selected my room, and so I am representing Airbnb by listing my property on their platform. And then maybe the next day I go to another town and I am renting an Airbnb. So now I'm the end user of some other person's property, having gotten access to it through the Airbnb platform. And the point is that these terms become so weird. So I'm really in the business of creating elevated human experiences. I just need to know kind of where we're focusing that human experience elevation. Are we first focusing on your internals? Are we going to your externals? Are we going to your vendors? Are we going to your stockholders? Are we going to your end users? Which group do we want to start with? Because here's the other real secret is if you don't manage all of these folks and elevate the experience sufficiently, you can have a really out of sync ecosystem. So let me give you an example. Let's pretend that I don't take very good care of my team members and I expect them to perform a certain way in terms of the scores they get on some metric of customer engagement. Well, the reality is they could try to do almost anything, but if they don't have the tools and the resources to get it done, all the more asking them, demanding of them, setting higher expectations, citing them for performance deficiencies, none of that's going to get you anywhere in the grand scheme of things. And if you have a fabulous external experience and you don't take care of your internal customers, it's not going to last for very long. So for me, ecosystem balance is it. I'll give you an example from Starbucks. They had a unicorn frappuccino drink, which was one of the most complicated things you could possibly make. Fairly high profit item, a limited time only offering, sprinkly, sparkly color, just a real nightmare to make. If all we cared about was the end user, let's say Starbucks was only wanting to go with the end user, the consumer of the beverage, that drink was super popular. The demand it put on the barista to make it was unpopular and not sustainable. So ultimately, Starbucks discontinued the unicorn frappuccino because the ecosystem was out of balance. We could tell you how much we wanted you to make them. We could read all the great reviews of the wonderful gustatory experience of but it was not an imbalanced ecosystem. So again, human experience elevation requires a balanced ecosystem. Customer experience oftentimes is done without a full appreciation for the ecosystem needed to sustain it. All right, that's pretty much the topic for today. Had a lot of folks kind of giving me kind of nice thumbs up and whatchamacallits here. So thank you for the love messages and the thumbs ups throughout the thing. If I didn't get any answers to my question, though, I'm really kind of bummed right now. I asked what was the brand that what you think delivers fabulous customer experience. So I'll give this one more minute for you to throw in, and then I'll tell you my answer today to the group from Reykjavik, Iceland. Oh, there's a thank you from Baska. Hi, Baska. Good to see you. Look at Baska soon. She's an amazingly caring person who's got a great product. So I'll tell you more about her down the road. Maybe we'll have her on a live stream once we get everything rolling. All right. So any great brands? Anybody going once, going twice before I give you my answer? All right. Yeah. So I'll go with this. Here's the answer that I gave the people in Reykjavik today about great customer service brands. I said, look, I don't really want to. I don't want to. Oh, here's Panera. Thanks, Eric. I think Panera does a really good job. I met them many years ago, and they were thinking about doing their community rooms for the first time. And they were really, and they did it. It was really pretty remarkable. I don't know how well it's fared of late, but for the longest time, they had a room where people in the community could just request it and they'd wall it off and you could use it as community space. And they felt like if we were providing a community space, whereas earlier I said the living room of the community as Starbucks model, there we're actually creating a community meeting room space within their buildings. And it was a great differentiator. They have, they've done a really good job with technology to notify. You can pre-order using their technologies. Panera's done a great job. So great answer. High Point University, says Sarah Boyd Toldbud. Oh, I like that answer. Nito Cobain is a buddy of mine. He's actually included in the new book, Stronger Through Adversity. He is the chancellor, I think the figurehead of High Point University. Great educational facility, has some pretty high standards for living on campus. Yeah, great answer on that one. All right, so let me get to my answer. So this is what I told them in Reykjavik today. I said, look, I will, I obviously think the Ritz-Carlton is consistently an extraordinary experience creator, but my answer is always the same, which is whatever I say right now may not be tomorrow. And that anybody who gets the title of being extraordinary in customer experience has a giant target on their back. And so the pressure becomes higher and higher and higher the more people expect it of you. So I am reluctant to ever say, because the day I say Zappos is the day somebody contacts me and says, well, I didn't get my package as quickly as I expected it. They used to send them in 4 hours. Now I got it in 5 hours, right? So I get that contact. I write books about Starbucks. You would not believe. I feel like I'm the Starbucks complaint department. People write, well, that wasn't the Starbucks experience I got last Wednesday. Or the Ritz-Carlton. Invariably, some guest gets offended by something that happens at the Ritz-Carlton, and I tend to get those emails as well. So my answer to the question is, there are a lot of extraordinary service brands, but the end of the day, it's the sum total of all of our efforts on every single day that causes us to be on this journey, not a destination, to extraordinary experiences. So I hope today you will take from this a few key things. Customer service is to get it right, make customer experiences is staging or crafting or building an experience that goes across many touch points and that is designed to create a certain kind of emotional outcome on top of practical value to the consumer. I hope that you'll take that we're all on a constant journey to make this happen. I hope you'll take to heart some of my distinctions between customer labeling and the importance of human experience delivery, and that we can't favor one customer group over another in the end, because the ecosystem has to be in balance for it to be sustainable. That's my hope for you today. Bonnie says Home Depot, and the employees are awesome. Yeah, I have a very good success experience with Home Depot. Problem I have is they put a Lowe's closer to my house than a Home Depot, so I tend to go to one opposed to the other. But I actually get great experiences from both. So that's because I just go in there saying, I have no idea what I'm looking for. Please help me. And most of the time, they're really well trained to make sure that happens. All right. Thank you all for your time today. We will be back next time. By the way, we did have this change of plan, but it was only because Gary couldn't make it. To give you a sense of what's coming up next, however, are these folks. Assuming, of course, we have no more cancellations, but Roger Brooks, Build the Best You, just a great book, personal growth, kind of go, not so much focusing on how to be the best somebody else. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of people set personal growth goals that really are somebody else's growth goals, and they envy somebody else and they want to be them. You have unique gifts and talents. And if you just fully express them, talk about differentiation in the marketplace and the brand that you are. So we'll talk about that next week. And then brand storytelling. Oh gosh, you're gonna love Ekaterina Walter. I worked with her with clients of mine, Fortune 500 clients. She and I worked with. She's formerly with Sprinkler. She's just crazy smart when it comes to social media marketing and how to tell your brand story. Now, I hope we get into things like, what's your origin story of your brand? Can you tell it in a way that's compelling? There are some amazing people out there who can tell you their rags to riches story in a heartbeat, and it's so compelling, and it's part of the brand storytelling. What's your logo mean? How did your logo get designed? You'll see in mine, I have a heart, an inner heart and an outer heart, and we inspire employee experiences that fuel the lift on the outer heart, which is the customer experience. I have a story. I ignite the flame that creates the elevation of the human experience. So we'll talk about those kind of things in brand storytelling. And then that smiling face on the 8th is the person who got me into public speaking for the first time. Her name is Sarah Michelle. I will tell you that part of my brand story, how she nudged me out to be a public speaker. Is a master connector. She knows how to connect people. She connected my talents to a passion of mine now in my career, but she also is just the queen networker. And her company, Velvet Chainsaw. Put that in your brain and think about it. Velvet Chainsaw is her branding. So we'll talk a little bit about that in the weeks to come. All right. Thank you so very much, each and every one of you. I look forward to seeing you very next week with Roger Brooks, hopefully joining us. Until then, may you have a fabulous, fabulous week. And thank you so much for being a part of this journey. If you get a chance, like us on Facebook. I think you're supposed to do that. Or maybe subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let me think, what else can you do? I guess those are the main ways. You can share this post with someone if you think they'll have some value from it. So thanks very much.